Commander, let's light the sky. Training sharper drone pilots, learning how to fly. Mission ready mindset, safety leading every plan. Skills that build confidence from takeoff through the scan. Tune in at Sky Commander, come join the crew today. Learning smart, fly with purpose, level up your way. We see more, no sooner, that's the edge we're here to spread. See above, go beyond, get ahead.
Okay, let's get started. If you want to find the person most likely to make a catastrophic, entirely preventable mistake today, don't look for the rookie.
Right. Absolutely not the rookie.
Yeah. Don't look for the new hire who is, still reading the manual. And definitely don't look for the intern who's sweating and nervous about touching the controls.
They're actually the safest ones in the room.
Exactly. Look for the 10-year veteran. Look for the person who has done the exact same operation 1,000 times without a single scratch.
Because they've got that armor of experience. Or at least they think they do.
Right. Because the most dangerous threat in a high-stakes environment isn't a lack of skill. It's the invisible, quiet way a highly experienced brain actively tricks itself under pressure.
It completely flips our standard assumption on its head. I mean, we operate in this culture that treats experience as this impenetrable shield against bad judgment.
Oh, totally. We just assume that if you've seen it all, you're safe.
Yeah. The assumption is that if you've been doing this for a decade, your brain is a perfectly calibrated machine. But the reality of cognitive psychology, and specifically how we process risk in real time, proves the exact opposite.
It's wild.
Yes. Experience doesn't always build a shield. Very often, it just builds a highly sophisticated library of excuses.
Which is exactly why we are tearing into today's material. For you listening right now, whether you are prepping for a massive board meeting or trying to lead a remote team through a crisis or managing completely unreasonable client expectations.
Or if you're just trying to get through the week without a disaster.
Yeah, or if you are just insanely curious about how really smart people manage to walk themselves right off a cliff, this deep dive is custom tailored for you. You are our focus today.
We got some incredible source material for this one.
We really do. We are pulling apart a highly specialized set of training materials from the Sky Commander curriculum. Specifically, we got our hands on Season 9, Episode 13 of their internal training framework.
And that one is titled Confirmation Bias in the Cockpit, right?
Yes, exactly. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be saying, I don't fly drones. But these documents are designed to train professional remotely piloted aircraft system pilots, sure. But what becomes immediately apparent when you read through their risk management protocols is that they are mapping out human fallibility.
Yeah, the psychology they're targeting here applies to anyone who has to execute a plan while dealing with changing variables.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, if you manage a software rollout, if you run a logistics supply chain, or heck, if you're an emergency room triage nurse, the cognitive traps are identical.
The brain is the brain.
Right. Knowledge is most valuable when it's actually applied, and you do not need to be holding a drone controller for this to radically change how you process information today.
Our mission today is to extract the absolute best insights from this curriculum on how the brain shifts gears under pressure, and more importantly, how you can master the logic of high-stakes decision-making.
It's all about catching yourself in the act.
Okay, let's unpack this. The curriculum states that good pilots don't make bad decisions because they suddenly stop caring about safety.
Right. Nobody wakes up and says, I think I'll crash a $20,000 piece of equipment today.
Nobody does that. They make these decisions because the very moment pressure is introduced, the brain quietly changes jobs.
That's the crux of it.
It shifts from being a judge to being a defense lawyer.
That mental courtroom dynamic is the absolute foundation of everything that goes wrong. Let's look at the mechanics of that.
Let's do it.
So at the start of a mission, or the kickoff of a corporate project, your brain acts like a judge. And a judge sits on the bench and is entirely neutral.
Just looking at the facts.
Exactly. They're evaluating the facts as they arrive. They ask, is this safe? Are the conditions matching our plan? Do we have the budget? Is the timeline realistic?
The judge just wants the truth.
Right. The judge has absolutely no vested interest in the outcome, only in the integrity of the process.
Right. So the judge is happy to cancel the project if the numbers don't make sense. But then the sun starts setting. Or the client shows up, tapping their watch. Or you realize you've already spent $50,000 on this prototype.
And that's when things shift.
Suddenly, the judge leaves the room.
And the defense lawyer takes over. Now, a defense lawyer is emphatically not neutral.
No, not at all.
A defense lawyer's only job is to protect a predetermined conclusion. In this case, the predetermined conclusion is, we need to finish this flight, or we need to launch this product by Friday.
Whatever the original plan was, they have to defend it.
Exactly. So the brain stops evaluating incoming data and starts defending the plan. It stops asking, is this safe? And pivots entirely to, how can I explain away this warning sign so we can keep going?
The curriculum uses this incredibly sticky analogy for this. They say confirmation bias is like a flashlight with a bad attitude.
I love that phrase.
It's so good. It only shines on the evidence that you already like. And I immediately thought about how we do this in corporate settings.
Oh, it happens every day.
Right. If you are desperate for a marketing campaign to launch, you will shine your flashlight on the one focus group that loved it and leave the 3 focus groups that hated it sitting completely in the dark.
You literally don't even see them.
For these drone pilots, if they really want to fly, they will vividly notice the 5 seconds of calm air between the wind gusts and just completely ignore the fact that the gusts are hitting 40 miles an hour.
Because processing the gusts requires the brain to do extra work. We have to look at the neuroscience of the defense lawyer brain for a second.
Yeah, break that down.
The brain is what cognitive scientists call a cognitive miser.
A cognitive miser.
Yeah, it's cheap. It takes physical metabolic energy to evaluate a new threat, calculate a new plan, and face the social friction of telling a client that you have to delay.
It's exhausting to be the bearer of bad news.
It really is. So when you are under pressure, your prefrontal cortex is stressed, and the brain looks for the absolute cheapest energetic pathway.
And the cheapest pathway is...
Just assuming everything is fine and sticking to the original plan.
Wow. Which brings up the dangerous difference between a fact and a story. Because if the brain is trying to save energy, it just starts making up stories to dismiss the facts.
Precisely. A fact is an objective, measurable piece of data. A story is the reassuring narrative your defense lawyer brain attaches to that data to save energy.
Give me an example of that.
Okay, let's take a common aviation scenario from the text. A pilot is powering up their drone, and a magnetic interference warning flashes in red on their tablet screen. The objective fact is the aircraft's compass is compromised.
That's the fact, just the warning on the screen.
Right. But the pilot doesn't want to pack up and go home. So the defense lawyer steps up and says, hey, there's a big metal contractor truck parked 20 feet away. That truck is probably causing the interference.
And the really insidious part of confirmation bias is that the story might actually be true.
It could be.
Yeah, it is entirely plausible that the truck is the source of the magnetic interference. But here's where the operational failure occurs. The pilot treats their own explanation as if it were a safety control.
Yes. They haven't proven it was the truck.
Right. They haven't moved the drone to a clear field to test the compass. They haven't isolated the variable. They have simply invented a comforting excuse that allows them to push the launch button.
It's a massive leap of faith dressed up as logic. They're confusing their own internal monologue with external physics.
That's a great way to put it.
And confirmation bias rarely invents false evidence out of thin air. It just overweights the most convenient explanation. The professional standard requires the pilot to stop and ask, what evidence actually proves this warning is just the truck, and what evidence proves the aircraft's navigation system is safe to fly?
You actually have to go find the proof.
Exactly.
So if highly trained aviation professionals fall into this trap, we need to understand the environment that breeds it. Flying a commercial drone creates a perfect storm for this bias because of the severe disconnect between how the operation looks and what the operation actually is.
The optics are terrible for risk management.
They really are. From the outside, this looks deceptively casual. You drive up to an industrial park, you pull a folded drone out of a literal backpack, you pop it on the pavement, and you start controlling it with an app on an iPad that looks exactly like the interface you use to watch movies on Netflix.
It does not feel like you are sitting in the cockpit of a Boeing 737.
Not at all.
That casualness is a psychological trap. You're wearing sneakers in a parking lot, but the laws of physics and the regulations of the federal government do not care about your footwear.
They really don't.
In the United States, under FAA Part 107 regulations, the remote pilot in command is the final legal authority. They hold the exact same legal liability for the safety of the airspace as a helicopter pilot.
Wow.
And in Canada, Transport Canada's CARS Part 9X dictates incredibly strict operating categories based on weight airspace classification, and the exact lateral distance from bystanders.
For someone who isn't in aviation, what does that liability actually look like? Are we talking about a slap on the wrist, like a traffic ticket?
Oh, absolutely not. We are talking about federal offenses. We are talking about catastrophic liability if that drone falls out of the sky and hits a bystander or causes a fatal distraction on a nearby highway.
So, real severe consequences.
Yes. You can be personally sued, your company can be liable for millions, and you can face criminal negligence charges. The environment doesn't feel like dramatic aviation with flight suits and control towers, but legally and physically, you are the captain of an aircraft.
But because it's just an iPad in a parking lot, the brain relaxes.
Exactly. When pilots let the casual feel of the iPad lower their mental guard, the biases slip in.
Okay, so the Sky Commander curriculum breaks down this confirmation bias into 4 distinct levels. And this was eye-opening for me because I only ever thought about the first one.
Most people do.
Yeah. So level 1 is safety bias. This is exactly what it sounds like. The pilot minimizes physical risk to get the job done. The wind is howling, but the pilot says, well, the drone is heavy, it can handle it.
Or they are flying near a road and they say, those cars are moving fast. If I drop, I'll probably miss them.
Right. Safety bias is the most visible. It threatens physical assets like people, property, the aircraft itself.
But it is usually preceded by the second level, which is compliance bias.
Ah, okay.
This is when a pilot assumes the regulatory rules fit their mission simply because looking up the actual rules is inconvenient.
So this is the guy who looks at a map, sees an airport a few miles away, and tells himself, I'm keeping it low. I'm probably under their radar. This is fine.
Right. They don't check the aeronautical charts. They don't request airspace authorization. They just assume their standard operating procedure covers them.
Just hoping for the best.
Yeah. Compliance bias doesn't necessarily cause a crash, but it destroys the pilot's legal defensibility. If anything goes wrong, even something totally out of their control, like a sudden bird strike, the subsequent investigation will reveal they were operating illegally.
And their insurance drops them instantly.
Instantly. You're completely exposed.
Now, level 3 is deliverable bias. This is fascinating. The curriculum defines this as a pilot flying completely safely, completely legally, but collecting entirely useless data.
This one catches a lot of professionals.
Yeah, they are doing a thermal inspection of a roof, say, and the thermal sensor is saturated, but the pilot looks at the blurry screen and says, well, there are some colors on there. The engineers can probably figure it out.
They're just pushing through.
Let me push back on this, though. Is bad photography really a safety issue? Why is this in a high-stakes risk management course?
It is a phenomenal inclusion in the course because it addresses the actual purpose of the operation. In professional RQAS work, the baseline standard is just, did we avoid a crash? But the ultimate standard is, did we execute the mission?
Okay, that makes sense.
If a pilot flies safely, but their camera settings are completely blown out or their mapped grid overlap is too low, the mission is a failure.
Because they just wasted everyone's time.
Worse than that, think about the ripple effects. If that pilot hands over degraded thermal data to an engineering team inspecting a pipeline, and the engineers rely on that bad data to declare the pipeline safe.
Oh, wow.
Right? That pilot's deliverable bias just compromised a piece of critical infrastructure. A mission can be safely flown, but fail completely on a professional level.
Because the pilot just wanted to be done.
Exactly. Confirmation bias pushes pilots to accept garbage data because they just want the friction of the job to be over. They want to go home.
That makes total sense. They're protecting their immediate comfort over the long-term integrity of the output.
Which leads perfectly into the 4th level reputation bias. This is where the pilot protects their own image instead of protecting the mission.
This is deeply tied to the ego. It sounds like, I don't want to look nervous in front of the client. Or, I told my boss I could get this done by noon, I can't back out now.
That's all about how they look.
Yes. Reputation bias shifts the pilot's focus away from managing an aircraft and toward managing their identity. They are performing for an audience. I see this constantly in corporate project management. A team leader realizes the software architecture is fundamentally flawed a month before launch, but they don't say anything because they don't want to look incompetent to the VP.
Nobody wants to be the one to halt the train.
Exactly. They risk the whole product just to protect their reputation in a single meeting.
It's the exact same mechanism. And the danger of these 4 biases, safety, compliance, deliverable, and reputation, is that they rarely result in a sudden, dramatic explosion.
Right. It's not a Michael Bay movie.
No, they whisper. They slowly and systematically degrade the margins of safety until there is absolutely no room left for error.
To illustrate how that slow degradation happens, the text walks through a fictional but incredibly realistic case file. They call it the 10-step slide. I want to break this down because it reads like a thriller where the monster is just bad logic.
It is a masterclass in how small compromises compound over time. The scenario begins with step 1, which is the setup.
Okay, set the scene for us.
It's a standard industrial facility shoot. The pilot is tasked with getting some overhead mapping and a few marketing photos. They have 2 batteries, a visual observer or VO to help watch the airspace, and a completely clear weather forecast.
It's a beautifully boring day.
Which is critical. Confirmation bias rarely takes root on a day that looks objectively disastrous.
Right, if there's a tornado, you just don't fly.
Exactly. If you show up and there is a thunderstorm, you pack up.
Yeah.
Bias takes root when the situation looks 90% fine, which gives the defense lawyer brain plenty of room to rationalize the 10% that is bad.
So we move to step 2, the weak signals. The pilot arrives on site. The wind is slightly gustier than the forecast predicted. Not a hurricane, but noticeable.
Just a little nudge.
Right, and the designated launch area, which was supposed to be empty, has 2 contractor trucks parked in it, making it much tighter. Then the pilot powers on the drone, and a compass warning flashes on the screen. The pilot physically picks up the drone, moves it 3 feet to the left, and the warning disappears.
Notice how subtle those inputs are. Wind, tight space, temporary warning.
Nothing crazy.
No. But step 3 is the rationalization. The pilot's brain goes to work explaining away the data. The wind is just coming in waves. I can time the launch.
The launch area is tight, but I'm a good pilot. I can shoot the gap.
Right. And that compass warning was just the truck. They are evaluating nothing. They are actively defending the original plan to fly.
Then we get step 4, client pressure. The facility manager walks out to watch. He's super friendly. He says, hey, while you're up there, the CEO would love a quick sweeping shot right over the main entrance.
The polite request.
The polite request. Now, the pilot knows the main entrance has employees occasionally walking in and out. Flying over moving people is a major regulatory red flag. But the pilot thinks, he's being so nice and it's just one shot. I can probably keep the drone high enough that it's basically safe.
The word basically is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It really is.
And that leads us to step 5, the degradation. The pilot launches. Immediately, the flight feels sloppy. The drone is physically fighting the wind gusts, which means the motors are working overtime.
And because the motors are working overtime, the battery starts dropping significantly faster than the pilot calculated.
And the visual observer, who is standing next to the pilot, squints against the bright overcast sky and says, hey, I just lost visual contrast on the drone for a second.
And what does the pilot do? The pilot, staring intently at the iPad screen, says, don't worry about it, I've got it perfectly framed on the monitor.
The pilot just dismissed their only external safety sensor. They're locked into the screen, suffering from massive tunnel vision.
It's all falling apart.
And this brings us to the climax. The pilot is now deep into their final battery. The reserve margin is razor thin. The drone needs to come home right now. But the client leans over and says, man, this looks amazing. Can you just do one more pass from the other direction? It'd be perfect.
The pilot wants to be the hero. They want to finish strong. So they say yes. They push the drone out for one more pass. Now the battery is flashing critical. The drone enters a forced automated landing mode, but because of the wind, it is drifting.
Drifting badly.
Yeah. The pilot has to take manual control, fighting the gusts, fighting the dying battery, trying to bring it down into that tight space between the contractor trucks. And as they are descending, a random contractor walks out of a door and right into the landing zone.
The pilot is now hovering at 10 feet, burning the last literal drops of battery power over a contaminated landing zone in gusting winds.
It's terrifying. They have backed themselves into a corner where every single safety margin is completely gone. And this brings up the core concept of the entire curriculum, the risk stack.
The risk stack completely changes how you view decision-making. The pilot in this story treated every single warning as an isolated event.
Right. They dealt with them one by one.
They treated the wind as one problem, the compass warning as a second problem, the battery as a third problem. They explain them away individually. But risks do not exist in a vacuum. They stack, they compound exponentially.
The analogy they use in the curriculum is perfect for this. Imagine every weak signal is a small physical lead weight that you tape to the arms of the drone before takeoff.
And I love that visual.
Right. If you tape one weight to the drone, the motors spin up, the flight controller adjusts, and the drone handles it. It's fine. But if you take 5 weights to it, wind, compass issues, tight landing zone, client pressure, low battery, you fundamentally alter the physics of the aircraft.
It's not the same machine anymore.
Exactly. It stops being the machine you thought it was. Confirmation bias handles the weights individually instead of seeing the massive, heavy pattern that is dragging the mission down.
And that leads to the absolute most shocking part of this case study. How does the 10-step slide end?
Oh, man.
The contractor notices the drone, steps back. The pilot drops the drone hard onto the pavement. It doesn't break. The client claps on the shoulder, thrilled with the footage. The pilot packs the bag, puts it in the trunk, and drives home.
I read that and I was waiting for the fireball. I was waiting for the drone to smash a windshield, but it's a completely lucky outcome. Nothing bad happened.
And a lucky outcome is the most dangerous trap of all.
Why is that?
Because what is the psychological takeaway for that pilot? They got away with a massive, towering stack of compromised decisions. And because they survived, their brain gets a huge hit of dopamine. They just taught themselves the exact wrong lesson.
I think they're a genius.
Right. Their takeaway is, I am an incredibly skilled pilot who can push the limits and make it work.
When the real lesson should be, I am incredibly lucky that my terrible judgment didn't put someone in the hospital today.
Exactly. Surviving a weak decision does not miraculously transform it into a strong decision. It just reinforces a toxic habit. The next time that pilot goes out, their baseline for acceptable risk has shifted. They will push it a little further and a little further until eventually the math catches up with them and they crash.
So let's put ourselves in the shoes of that pilot. If they didn't even realize what they were doing in the moment because every decision just felt like standard, fast-paced problem solving, how can you, the listener, catch yourself in the act? If the brain is tricking the brain, what is the alarm bell?
You can't rely on your thoughts.
Right. The text suggests we shouldn't start by looking at our thoughts. We should start by looking at our physical bodies, the physiology of bias.
This is deeply rooted in our evolutionary biology. Long before your conscious, slow-thinking prefrontal cortex realizes a plan is failing, your amygdala, your threat detection center, knows something is wrong.
Your body knows before your brain does.
Yes, bias manifests physically. A pilot might notice a tight, constrained feeling in their chest. Their breathing becomes shallow and rushed. They might feel a sudden spike in body temperature or a weird, inexplicable irritation when their visual observer asks a totally normal question.
Like getting irrationally angry when someone asks, hey, what's the battery at? And you just want to snap at them.
Precisely. Are you bothering me right now? Another huge physical symptom is an overwhelming, almost magnetic urge to just launch the drone, to push the sticks forward and get in the air, just to end the uncomfortable conversation on the ground.
Just to get away from the pressure.
Exactly. Or staring obsessively at the tablet screen, almost a foot away from your face, entirely losing peripheral vision of the real world.
It's the classic fight or flight response, but it's not triggered by a tiger in the bushes. It's triggered by the fear of delaying the mission and looking bad.
The curriculum makes a profound point here. That physical discomfort, that tight chest or sudden anger, is not necessarily proof that the drone is in immediate physical danger, but it is a glaring, blaring cockpit alarm warning you to slow down your cognition.
It's a system warning.
Your body is screaming, you are under immense pressure, your defense lawyer brain is taking over. Check your thinking.
Okay, so if you feel that tight chest, the next step is to check your vocabulary. This is where I started taking furious notes because I do this all the time. The text lists these risk shrinker words. These are the linguistic symptoms of bias. If you hear yourself thinking or speaking these words, you are already sliding down the slope.
Language doesn't just reflect our thoughts, it steers our attention. Let's look at the 4 major risk shrinkers.
Run them down for us.
First is the word just, as in, I'm just going to fly one more pass, or it's just a little wind. The word just is a psychological tool used to artificially shrink the perceived size of a risk so you don't have to deal with it.
Oh, I use just all the time. The second one is probably. The battery will probably last, or that compass warning was probably the truck.
Probably is incredibly dangerous. It takes a state of total uncertainty and attempts to masquerade it as evidence. You don't know the battery will last. You are hoping it will.
You're just guessing. Then we are basically clear of those pedestrians. Basically is a cloak. It hides the dangerous details. If you are basically clear, it means you are not actually clear.
Right. And finally, almost. We're almost done with this grid. Almost is a temptation. It tempts the pilot to spend safety margins they should be protecting because the finish line is in sight.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The curriculum doesn't just slap a ban on these words. They don't just say, stop saying probably. They provide functional replacement language.
It's brilliant.
It is a linguistic circuit breaker. If you catch your brain thinking, it's probably fine. The required replacement action is to stop and ask out loud what evidence proves it is acceptable. If you think it's just one more shot, you have to stop and ask, does this new shot change our risk profile?
By asking those specific replacement questions, you completely short-circuit the defense lawyer brain. You are forcing your brain to shift from seeking reassurance to actively seeking empirical truth.
It forces you to be the judge again.
Exactly. But to truly master this, we have to look one layer deeper. We have to understand why those risk-shrinking words bubble up in the first place.
Yeah.
What is the fuel source?
What's driving the panic?
Right. The curriculum identifies 6 specific pressure engines that power bias thinking.
Okay, let's run through these because I guarantee every single listener deals with at least 4 of these on a daily basis.
The first engine is time stress. The sun is setting and you are losing your lighting. The road closure permit expires in 15 minutes. The client has a flight to catch. Time stress physically narrows your cognitive bandwidth.
The second is client expectations, and I thought this was brilliant. The text points out that the danger isn't usually an angry, screaming client. The danger is polite pressure.
Absolutely. The client who says, I know we didn't plan for this, but do you think we could squeeze in a quick shot of the roof?
It's so hard to say no to that.
Polite pressure is lethal because it feels so reasonable. It triggers our social instinct to be helpful and accommodating, which overrides our operational instinct to adhere to the safety plan.
Engine number 3 is travel effort, which is basically the sunk cost fallacy before you even launch.
Oh, this is a big one.
Right.
What?
If you drove 3 hours out to a remote cell tower and you spent an hour unloading gear, your brain absolutely refuses to cancel the flight, even if the wind is out of limits.
The physics of the drone do not care that you drove 3 hours.
No, they don't.
But your ego cares deeply. Now, engine number 4 is fatigue. This is purely biological. A tired prefrontal cortex simply cannot sustain the energy required to argue against a bad idea. A fatigued brain takes shortcuts and accepts incredibly weak explanations just to get the job done.
Engine 5 is pride. This is the reputation bias we talked about earlier. You don't want to look timid in front of a junior pilot. You don't want the client to think you can't handle a little wind.
And finally, engine 6 is sunk cost during the mission itself. This is what aviation psychologists call planned continuation bias.
Explain that one.
Imagine you're flying a complex, automated mapping grid over a construction site. You're 85% done. The battery drops slightly lower than your planned return margin. Do you abort the mission, bring the drone back, swap the battery, and fly all the way back out to finish the last 15%? Or do you just push it and hope you make it?
You push it. Everyone pushes it. The text compares planned continuation bias to a massive luggage conveyor belt at an airport. Once the plan is set in motion, you step onto the belt, and it develops immense emotional momentum. It takes active, physical, deliberate effort to step off the belt.
It is significantly harder for a human being to recognize cues that a plan should change once they are actively executing the plan. The momentum of the status quo is incredibly blinding.
Which brought up a massive contradiction for me as I read this. I kept thinking, doesn't all this go away with time?
You'd think so.
Yeah, if you have flown drones for 10 years or managed corporate projects for 20 years, doesn't your experience turn off the conveyor belt?
The text argues the exact opposite, and the reasoning is deeply counterintuitive. Experience can actually make you substantially more vulnerable to confirmation bias in very specific, targeted ways.
They call it the expert-beginner paradox. Let's break it down.
Beginners get trapped by uncertainty. A rookie pilot sees a compass warning, and they don't know what it means. They might freeze, or they might overreact and crash the drone trying to get it down fast. They lack the mental models to process the data. But experts get trapped by false certainty.
So the expert sees the exact same compass warning.
And the expert says, oh, I've seen this a dozen times. Whenever I fly near these reinforced concrete buildings, I get a blip. It always clears up in 10 seconds. It's fine.
And just brush it off.
Their vast experience has become a massive, highly detailed library of excuses. They are using their past survival as current permission.
They aren't actually evaluating the drone. They are just remembering a time when they didn't crash.
Exactly. The beginner says, I don't know what this is, I'm scared. The expert says, I know exactly what this is, ignore it. And when the expert is wrong, When that compass warning isn't the building, but a genuine hardware failure, they will fly a completely compromised aircraft right into a catastrophic disaster because their confidence was completely uncalibrated to the reality of the moment.
So if we look at the whole picture, our brains are naturally lazy cognitive misers. We invent stories to avoid friction. We are blinded by casual environments. We let risks stack up until we rely on pure luck. Our bodies betray us with stress. Our language tricks us. And if we survive all that, our own experience lies to us.
It's a bleak picture.
It is. We literally cannot rely solely on ourselves. It is a biological impossibility to remain objective under this much pressure. We need an outside interrupter.
We need to design a system that introduces healthy friction into the decision-making loop. And in RPAS operations, the ultimate source of that friction is a human being, the visual observer.
Let's dive into the VO, because the curriculum is incredibly strict about what a VO is, and more importantly, what they are not.
Right.
They are not a spectator. They are not there to hold your coffee or chat with the client. They are explicitly defined as a bias interrupter.
The legal framework supports this heavily. The FAA Part 107 rules dictate that if a pilot uses a visual observer, that VO must be able to maintain visual line of sight with the aircraft, know its location, attitude, altitude, and direction of flight, and actively scan the surrounding airspace for potential hazards.
They have a real job.
They are a calibrated human sensor. A drone has a GPS chip and a camera. The pilot has the control sticks. But the VO provides the external, big-picture situational awareness that a pilot staring intently at an 8-inch screen simply cannot maintain.
But the Sky Commander training goes way beyond the legal definition. They detail a behavioral protocol called the strong crew pattern. How should a pilot actually interact with this VO to interrupt bias?
The difference between a weak crew and a strong crew is how they handle uncertainty. A weak crew operates on an unspoken rule that you wait until danger is absolute and obvious before speaking up.
So the VO won't say anything until they are 100% sure a helicopter is on a collision course.
Exactly. But in a strong crew pattern, the lead pilot explicitly engineers the social dynamic before the drone ever leaves the ground.
They give the VO explicit permission to challenge them.
They demand it. The pilot will say, my focus is going to be on the screen. Your focus is the sky. If you feel even slightly uncertain about our clearance or the wind or a pedestrian, you call pause.
Just like that.
You do not need to prove to me that we are in danger. If you say pause, I will immediately halt the aircraft and we will figure it out together.
It completely flips the dynamic. It changes the VO from a passive assistant who is afraid of looking stupid into an active, empowered safety system. I think about this in corporate meetings all the time.
Oh, it translates perfectly.
You need a VO in the room. You need a wingman whose only job is to watch the client's body language while you are deep in the weeds of your presentation, and you have to empower them to interrupt you and pivot the room if they see the client checking out.
It is the exact same principle. You are outsourcing your peripheral vision to someone who is not suffering from the cognitive load of flying the drone or delivering the pitch. Now, what if you don't have a human wingman? What if your safety net is a checklist?
You mentioned earlier that checklists are great because they don't care about your feelings. They don't care that you drove 3 hours.
But it has to be the right kind of checklist. Most drone pilots use a mechanical checklist. Are the propellers secure? Is the battery at 100%? Is the SD card formatted?
The basic stuff.
Those are necessary, but they do absolutely nothing to stop confirmation bias. An anti-bias checklist is a cognitive checklist.
What does a cognitive checklist look like?
It asks questions that force you to document your judgment. What is my weakest assumption about this flight plan? What specific piece of evidence am I actively minimizing right now? What is the specific non-negotiable stop trigger for this operation? Who on this site has the authority to call a halt?
So it's asking you to analyze your own brain.
It forces the pilot to pull their implicit thoughts out of their head and evaluate them objectively.
Okay, let me throw a wrench in this. A practical dilemma that I'm sure thousands of operators face every day, and the text acknowledges it. What if I am a solo operator?
Oh, yeah.
I'm a freelance real estate photographer or an independent roof inspector. I don't have a visual observer. I don't have a crew. It is just me, the drone, the client, and the pressure. How do I get a second set of eyes when I am completely alone?
It's the most dangerous scenario, and it requires the most discipline. The curriculum offers a specific protocol for this exact situation called the solo pilot self-brief. Since you do not have a human VO to introduce friction and interrupt your bias, you have to artificially manufacture that interruption. You have to act as your own red team.
How do you red team yourself without just falling back into the same mental loops?
By changing the medium of your thoughts. The text suggests you cannot just think through the brief silently in your head because the defense lawyer brain will steamroll right over it.
It's too easy to just agree with yourself.
You must use a physical action. Pull out your phone and record a voice memo of your plan. Use a physical red flag card in your drone case that you literally have to touch and flip over. Or, most effectively, make a formal, out-loud verbal statement to an empty parking lot before you launch.
Literally talking to yourself.
Yes. You must verbally answer 3 questions. What has fundamentally changed since I planned this flight last night? What is my most fragile assumption right now? What exact measurable event would force me to stop this flight and land?
And doing this out loud makes the difference.
By speaking it out loud, you engage different neural pathways. The brain processes spoken language more linearly and critically than fleeting internal thoughts. By forcing the words out of your mouth, you become your own second set of eyes.
Okay, so having a great VO or an anti-bias checklist or running a rigorous solo self-brief, that is all fantastic preparation on the ground. But eventually the preparation ends, the drone is in the air.
The reality hits.
You are 200 feet up, the battery is graining, the wind shifts, the client taps you on the shoulder and asks for a massive change to the plan. The pressure hits max capacity. The pilot still has to make the final call in the heat of the moment. How do we upgrade our actual real-time decision-making software?
This is where we move from defense to offense. We had to shift the pilot from being a passive gatherer of information, hoping things go well, to an active interrogator of their own story. And the ultimate cognitive tool for this, the pinnacle habit of the professional operator, is aggressively asking for disconfirming evidence.
Disconfirming evidence. Break down exactly how that works in practice.
Normally, when a pilot faces a problem, they ask a confirming question. Can we still fly?
Yeah.
Or, is this plan still safe?
As we've exhaustively covered, the defense lawyer brain will instantly scour the environment to find yes answers.
It'll just find the good stuff. It will find the one pocket of calm air and say, yep, totally safe. To break that trap, the professional operator reverses the polarity of the question. They ask, what would prove this plan is absolutely wrong? Or, what specific evidence would prove we should not continue?
I love that. It's like reverse engineering your own failure in real time.
It was the most powerful way to short-circuit confirmation bias. Because the bias is biologically wired to look for supportive evidence, asking for disproof forces the brain to search in the exact opposite direction.
It completely flips the script.
If you ask, what would prove this flight is unsafe? Suddenly the blinders come off. You suddenly notice that the battery reserve is dropping twice as fast as it should. You notice that the wind is pushing you slowly toward a busy intersection. You notice the client has wandered dangerously close to the landing zone. You stop looking for a comforting reassurance and you start looking for objective truth.
To make this process systematic, especially when you only have seconds to decide, the Sky Commander text provides a highly practical framework called the bias loop. I am a sucker for a good acronym. BIAS. Walk us through a scenario using this loop.
The bias loop is designed to be executed in under 10 seconds, right on the flight line, while your thumbs are still on the sticks.
Okay.
Let's use the mapping scenario. B stands for belief.
Yeah.
You explicitly state what you currently believe. I believe we can finish this final mapping grid pass before the battery dies.
Right.
ITSIS is for information. What information supports this belief and what information challenges it. Supports. Right. We only have one pass left. Challenges. The wind is a direct headwind and the battery is at 28%.
Okay, so you have the facts.
A is for alternative. What else could be true? We might finish the grid, but we might also trigger an automatic forced landing over a forest because of the headwind.
That's the bad alternative.
And S is for stop rule. What specific non-negotiable metric will make me abort? If the battery hits 20% and we are not on the return leg, we abort the grid and come home immediately.
It is incredibly clinical. And if a pilot feels themselves getting completely overwhelmed, maybe the client is yelling, the drone is beeping, and their chest is tight, the curriculum offers a panic button. It's a brilliant 5-sentence, 30-second reset script.
It's a lifesaver.
It goes exactly like this. Sentence 1. My current conclusion is sentence 2. The evidence supporting this is sentence 3. The evidence against this is sentence 4. This conclusion would be wrong if sentence 5. Therefore, we will
It takes the emotion completely out of the cockpit. It forces you to state the facts out loud like a robot.
It really does. But of course, the elephant in the room is often standing right next to the pilot watching the screen.
The client.
The client. A massive fear for operators is that if they run this very clinical reset and they reach sentence 5 and say, therefore, we will pause the operation, they are going to look incredibly unprofessional, timid, or incompetent to the person who's paying their invoice.
Which is precisely why the curriculum provides client management scripts. The absolute best operators do not manage the client in the heat of the moment. They manage the client before the pressure ever hits.
Set the stage early.
In the pre-flight briefing, before the drone is even powered on, the pilot should look at the client and say, just so you know, we may pause, hold, or adjust this flight if conditions change. That is a normal part of our safety protocol. It protects the legal integrity of the operation, and it protects the quality of your final product.
That is so smart. By setting that expectation early, a pause later in the day doesn't feel like a sudden failure or lack of skill. It feels like the pilot is flawlessly executing the professional, rigorous process they promised.
Exactly. But what happens when the drone is already in the air? You are on a tight battery, and the client leans over and says, hey, can you just drop down and do one more quick low shot right over those people walking by? The social instinct is to say yes to please them.
Right. You don't want to just yell no and ruin the relationship. What is the professional pivot?
The script the text offers is masterful in its diplomacy. You validate their vision without compromising your authority. You say, I see exactly what you want. I can get you the dynamic energy of that shot without putting the aircraft illegally over people. Let me reposition to a safe angle and keep the shot clean.
Wow.
You validate their goal getting great footage, but you maintain total control over the operational method. You remain helpful, but you remain the pilot in command.
So you've run your reset, you've managed the client's expectations, and you figured out a new, revised plan. Before you push the 6, you still have to pass the final test. The text outlines 3 gates that every single mission must pass before it can continue.
Yes, the 3 standards. This is the final filter. Every revised plan must be objectively safe, legal, and useful.
Break those down.
First, safe. Do you have adequate physical margins? Is the battery sufficient to fight the headwind? Are non-participating people protected from the flight path?
Second is legal.
Right. Does this revised plan comply with FAA Part 17 or Transport Canada's CARS Part 9X? Are we still within our permitted airspace altitude? Are we maintaining visual line of sight?
And finally, useful.
Will this flight actually produce a viable deliverable? If we are flying a pipeline inspection safely and legally, but the sun has set and the lighting makes the optical camera useless, the mission is not useful. It fails the gate. You land the drone.
So what does this all mean? When we pull all these frameworks, loops, and checklists together, what is the ultimate profile of a master decision maker?
It comes down to flexibility.
It means that a professional's confidence must remain fundamentally interruptible. You can be supremely confident in your stick skills, but the absolute second the environmental evidence changes, your plan must instantly change. You cannot allow your hard-earned confidence to calcify into a rigid, blind defense of a bad plan.
If we synthesize the core theme of this entire Sky Commander curriculum, it is this. The safest mission is not the one with 0 problems. A mission with no problems is a statistical anomaly, and frankly, it teaches you nothing.
It really doesn't.
The safest, most professional mission is the one where problems are anticipated, recognized early, acknowledged honestly, without EO, and controlled deliberately. The mantra for every operator should be simple. Evidence first, ego last.
Evidence first, ego last. That is the gold standard. And for you listening, as we wrap up this deep dive into the muddy waters of human cognition, remember the promise we made at the start. You don't have to fly drones to use this.
You really don't.
Tomorrow morning, when you are managing a major software rollout, leading a team through a PR crisis, or even making a massive personal life decision, take a breath and ask yourself if you were evaluating the brutal facts like a neutral judge, or if you were just aggressively defending your preferred, comfortable plan like a defense lawyer.
Ask yourself, are you actively looking for the truth, or are you just scanning the room looking for reassurance?
Exactly. And I want to leave you with one final, slightly uncomfortable thought to mull over on your own time. I want you to think back to a recent lucky outcome in your own work or your own life. A time when you saw a weak signal, you felt a little red flag in your gut, but you ignored it. You stepped onto the conveyor belt, you pushed forward anyway, and by pure luck, you succeeded. You got away with it.
We've all been there.
We really have. I want you to ask yourself, did that unearned success secretly train your brain to ignore the exact same warning sign tomorrow? And more importantly, what specific non-negotiable red flag trigger can you set for yourself right now, today, before the pressure hits, to make absolutely sure you don't step back onto that conveyor belt next time?
Because eventually the luck runs out, the physics catch up. And you want to be the professional who catches the error early, not the one desperately trying to explain it away after the crash.
From the invisible traps of our own biology to building clear, interruptible command of our decisions. Thank you for giving us your time and joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. That's a wrap on today's mission, Commander. See above, go beyond, get ahead. For more training, tools, and intel, head to skycommander.ca. If you learned something new, share it, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star debrief.